A new study has come out that shows that DoorDash drivers might actually be making as little as $1.45 an hour. This is a new low. Hey everyone, this is Kevin the Apptrepreneur. Welcome to my channel. If this is your first time here and you have to really like this video, please do me a favor. Click that subscribe button and ring that bell notification. We upload videos on a near daily basis. Commentary, news, rants, interviews, premieres, live streams, and you will want to be notified when all of that goes online. Trust me. Now, I would normally wear my DoorDash shirt for this because I have one. But the story disgusts me enough that I don't think I'll do that. And also with the new format, I realize you can't really read the DoorDash anymore. So that seemed like a pointless tradition to keep up. But here's the thing. There was a new study, a new analyst, so to speak, that said that when you account for the time, the wear and tear, the gas, and the frequency of the orders, that most DoorDash drivers are making an average of $1.45 an hour. Now, full disclosure, I have not driven for DoorDash in a long time. I have been deactivated. I was deactivated twice. I was let back on once when I had like an ironclad case, but then they realized what I was doing on YouTube and decided they didn't want me out there anymore. Me and Katie still do Postmates for what we call Broadway money. We want to see a Broadway show. We do Postmates for a couple weekends. We get the money for 2 tickets and we buy it. That's what we do. However, some people try to live off of this. And if you're trying to live off of it, I'm sorry, you're probably not going to get very far ahead. Now, I'm not typically the DoorDash person, Pay to Drive and Team LMDC or, Tony. They are the food delivery people. I think Ultimate Delivery Man also. But here's the thing. It doesn't mean I can't comment on these articles because they are concerning. So it starts up with the national minimum wage of $7.25 an hour has not changed in a decade, and there is widespread agreement that it is far too low what constitutes a living wage anyway. As if the statistics on the federal minimum wage weren't dismal enough, leave it to Silicon Valley to figure out innovative ways to pay workers even less. A new in-depth quantitative study released this week as part of a worker campaign in collaboration with the worker rights nonprofit Working Washington found that contract delivery workers for food delivery company DoorDash earned $1.45 per hour on average after other expenses are accounted for. So Working Washington crunched pay data from 229 delivery jobs from Dashers around the United States and found that the workers were making an average of $1.45 an hour after taking into account the cost of mileage, additional payroll taxes that add up for independent contractors, and the lost work time as workers wait for the next job. All this data was from November and December 2019 after the company implemented a new pay model. The estimates made in the study don't take into account the cost of paying for public insurance benefits. They only factor in work expenses beyond mileage and payroll taxes, which means the real wages may be even more depressing. I will point out that with this study, I don't think very few of these studies actually take into account the mileage deduction. The mileage deduction is by far and away your best friend when it comes to these gig workers. You can write off so much money with just your gas mileage deduction. In fact, although Randy is free to correct me if I'm wrong, he confided in me that the reason he still does Turo, even though he doesn't really need Turo to make money, is because he can write off the miles that people who rent on Turo, when they drive the miles, like it's being rented, so it's a business expense. So he writes off the miles for Turo on his taxes, and that's one of the ways he comes out ahead at the end of the year. So never underestimate a mile deduction, but these articles never really bring it up. However, they don't normally bring them up because that's always at the end of the year, and it's rare that you're going to get money back for them. You're just going to, how should I put it? It's going to definitely offset what you're going to have to pay Uncle Sam, but Uncle Sam might not necessarily pay you back much. So let's look at what the report says. Nearly a third of DoorDash jobs actually pay less than $0 after accounting for these basic expenses. Just 11% of jobs pay more than the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour after expenses, and only 2% meet the standard of $15 plus expenses. Further, jobs with higher tips still tend to include lower pay. The set of jobs with tips of less than $1 pay 1.8 times as much as those jobs with tips of more than $8 on the gross hourly basis. It's like in November 2019, DoorDash claimed its new pay model would result in gross hourly earnings of more than $18, but as the report explains, it's unclear what qualifies as a gross earning. In my opinion, the gross earning to DoorDash should be what is on paper. And by the way, that's what most Uber tubers, or gig tubers, I should say, actually justify for why they do it. Now, look, I don't want to knock you if you're like making $400-500 a day. On paper, that looks really good, but when you factor in the expenses, I'm always interested how many of these YouTube videos about DoorDash, Uber, Lyft, and all these stuff show how much they earn, but it's like, yeah, but why don't you show us the fees that were taken out? Show us the gas that you spent. Show us the food. Like, why don't you show us the daily expenses in addition to the earnings? If someone does that, I don't know who they are. I would love to know, though. If that person exists, please comment below. But all of the big people who make their living bragging about what they are making on paper are not sharing their expenses, their credit card bills. They're not showing you the ugly side. And I'm not going to call any of them out, but I do know there's a couple people who brag about how much they're earning, and it's probably not who you think it is, or it might be, who knows. I like being mysterious that way. But I do know that these people personally have huge debt and credit card expenses because the expenses are just not budgeted for very well. Because it's one of those things where, like, the more money you make, the more it's going to cost you. So it's like being on the hamster on that wheel. So I believe that DoorDash, when they say you're going to make more than $18 an hour, that's on paper. They are not factoring in what you'll make after those expenses. And as the report points out, the company has declined to disclose how much of that gross amounts in tips, how much is paid from the company, how many miles workers drive, and thus much mileage expense they incur, what periods of time they consider to be part of an active hour, or other details and costs involved in achieving that reported level of gross earnings. Because that's the other thing about the gig worker stuff. No one's ever defined what a working hour is for any of this. Like time when you're not driving people or when you're just going to the destinations, is that considered part of the working time or is it not? I know that Uber's insurance, actually none of their insurances, now I think about it, cover you while you're getting to the food and to the customer, because that's on you or something like that. So here's the thing. What it boils down to is that DoorDash has created a pay model in which workers appear to be making a decent wage on paper, but which, after expenses, is barely more than $3. Worse, only 11% of DoorDash jobs paid above the U.S.'s laughable federal minimum wage. I'm not going to get into that debate, although I tend to agree. So, here's the thing. They did mention AB5 in this. California's recently passed Assembly Bill 5 is meant to protect gig workers such as these by defining the scope of when and where a contractor can be used and incentivizing companies to transition to salaried workers. Yet rather than ascend, companies like DoorDash and Uber are ruthlessly fighting against the bill, taking measures to make clear that their gig workers are independent contractors. Although I will give Uber this much credit. Uber is also making the changes that AB5 is requiring of them to keep drivers independent, because they're probably preparing like, hey, they'd like to win the lawsuit. They'd like for this to all go away. But they're also probably preparing like, well, just in case we don't win the lawsuit, we're going to be in compliance with the law. So here's the thing. We're going to end with the CEO of DoorDash, Tony Zhu, who's a terrible CEO, by the way. He slammed AB5, said it would have disastrous results if it's implemented because it's trying to impose an imperfect solution into a very big problem. A big problem you helped create, by the way, Tony. The net impact of AB5 would be a lot of lost economic opportunity and income for the state of California. Oh yeah, I'm sure the people are missing that $1.45 an hour. I'm sure there's going to be a huge loss there. So anyway, I know this gets a little testy sometimes because a lot of you do DoorDash and these other companies in earnest, and it's not nice that someone like me sits high upon his 16,000 plus subscriber YouTube channel and says bad. I understand that that's annoying, but here's the thing: we've been doing these studies, and I care. Okay, guys, I was dangerously close to making this. I thankfully started these companies early enough when they did pay well. And when my YouTube channel got to the point that I could be sustained from it, I got out of it as this was happening. But here's what people keep forgetting. Maybe I don't stress it enough. But had we not gotten to these rates and these low pay, I probably never would have left it. I did love it. Heck, I might have done it a little less because, yeah, of course I'd rather be making YouTube videos than being out on the road. But I still like doing it. I still enjoyed it. I actually find driving to be therapeutic. So much so that when I go to Sacramento, when me and my wife go to Sacramento, we tend to drive as opposed to fly. Sure, it costs about the same, and the flight will get us there like a heck of a lot sooner. It takes like an hour to fly there, so it takes like 8 hours to drive. But I like driving. I like the scenery. I just like all of that. So yeah, if I could still do this, I would be doing it. But no, I'm not going to do it for these rates. I feel you should not do that too. If your situation is bad enough that this is what you're willing to put up with, I mean, gosh, I guess I'm going to pray for you or something because that's just sad. That's sad that you feel this is acceptable. But hey, we're going to leave that right there. So what do you folks think? Do you agree? Have you really budgeted out what DoorDash pays you? I would love to know. Comment below, like, favorite, share, subscribe. And as always, flame responsibly. Have a good one.